Security was already behind me when he said my name. Not walking in, already there. That was the part that landed first. Not the insult. Not the firing. The fact that someone had decided this before I even looked up. Incompetent people like you aren't part of my plan. Get out. The words hit the table hard. Too clean. Too confident. Like he'd rehearsed them in the car. The CEO's son stood at the head of the room, shoulders back, jaw set, playing a role he hadn't earned yet. I didn't move right away. Someone inhaled sharply to my left. Someone else pushed their chair back a few inches, then froze. No one spoke. The security guard shifted his stance. Rubber soles squeaked against tile. That sound cut through everything. That's when it clicked. This wasn't a decision. It was a performance. I stayed seated long enough to make him uncomfortable. Just long enough. Then I reached for my notebook. Not the laptop. The notebook mattered. My fingers shook a little. I hated that. No arguing, no explaining. I wasn't giving him that. When I stood, he leaned forward slightly, like he expected resistance or collapse. I gave him neither. I passed close enough to smell his cologne. Sharp, expensive, new money. Good luck to you and your father. The sentence came out flat. Not brave, not dramatic, just done. That finally cracked something. His jaw tightened for half a second before he caught it. Eyes flicked to the door. To security, back to me. He hadn't planned for that line. I kept walking. The hallway felt wrong. Too quiet, like everyone was pretending not to hear what had just happened. My badge knocked once against my hip with each step. Annoying. Heavy. My name is Aria Caldwell. 41 years old. I'd worked in that building long enough to know when something was off. And being fired like that public, rushed, watched was off. You don't bring witnesses unless you're afraid of what someone might say. The elevator doors closed. My phone buzzed in my pocket, then buzzed again. I didn't look. Not yet. Whatever was waiting could wait another minute. The story you're about to hear is a fictional work created by the writing team at Revenge AITA. It is inspired by real workplace power struggles and corporate conflicts, but all characters and events have been dramatized for storytelling purposes. By the time the elevator started moving, I understood one thing clearly. That wasn't the end of me. It was someone trying very hard to make sure I didn't get another chance to speak. Why was HR calling me like I died instead of been fired? The first call came before I finished setting my notebook on the kitchen counter. Then another, then an email. Subject line polite, almost gentle, like I'd slipped and fallen. Not been shoved out in front of witnesses. I let the phone buzz, watched it creep toward the edge of the counter, vibrating like it wanted to escape. A voicemail followed anyway. We just need a signature, a pause, paper shuffling. Standard process. Another pause. Softer now. For closure. The email attachment stayed unopened. I didn't even hover over it. Something about the timing felt wrong. Too fast, too eager, like they wanted my name on paper before the story settled. Another message came in. Shorter this time. Please confirm receipt. I turned the phone face down. This is the part where I should have called a friend, or poured a drink, or screamed into a pillow like a normal person. Instead, I did something I hadn't planned on doing at all. I called a lawyer. We hadn't spoken in years. Not since I told myself I was done needing that kind of protection. He answered on the second ring. No small talk. No surprise. I was fired. I said, because it felt safer to say it out loud to someone who wouldn't flinch. Silence on the line. Not awkward. Calculating. They want paperwork. I added, exit interview, signatures, a breath on his end. Slow. Have you signed anything? No. Good. That word landed heavier than comfort ever does. I don't want anyone notified yet. I said, no board, no announcements. Another pause. Longer. Are you sure I need time? Then don't respond. Let them keep calling. The phone on my counter lit up again, rattling against the surface. I watched it vibrate itself sideways. We ended the call without goodbyes. I stood there longer than I meant to, staring at a dark screen and a stack of unopened messages, knowing I didn't have a plan. Just a feeling that if I answered too soon, I'd be agreeing to something I couldn't take back. So I let it ring. Why does a company flinch at its own history? No one says my dad's name anymore. They say legacy. They say it like it's a piece of furniture they don't want to move but won't admit they're afraid of. I noticed it years ago. Meetings would stall. Someone would glance my way, then look past me like the answer might be written on the wall. When I brought up something he used to insist on process, checks, people before flash the room would tighten. That was a different time. Not angry, dismissive, like brushing dust off a sleeve. He built this place in the late 1990s. One floor, South Loop, bad coffee that tasted like burned hope. He slept in the office some nights. I remember him coming home with ink on his hands and that tired smile he saved for when he didn't want us to worry. After he died, the tone shifted. Doors closed more often. Decisions happened elsewhere. The elevator started jerking between floors like it couldn't decide where it belonged. I learned to brace my knees before it lurched. His grandson hated that people still looked at me when things got stuck. I could feel it. The pause, the irritation. Like my presence reminded him of a standard he didn't ask for. "Why are you still here?" once slipped out during a review. Not loud, just enough to sting. I stayed anyway. Stupid, maybe. I told myself it mattered that I earned my seat. That walking away would prove them right. I worked harder, took less credit, waited my turn. Patience, I thought. Consistency. Show up and eventually they'll have to see you. That was my mistake. I really believed patience counted for something. That's on me. The last time someone almost said his name out loud, the room went quiet. Someone coughed. Another person started talking too fast about projections. The moment passed. I didn't push it. I kept my head down. I told myself there would be time. By the time the elevator finally reached my floor that morning, I understood something I hadn't wanted to before. They weren't forgetting him. They were avoiding what he built. What would you do if your life changed on a Tuesday with no warning? The folder slid across the table and stopped right at my wrist. I laughed. A short, sharp sound. Automatic. The kind you make when your brain thinks this has to be a joke because the alternative feels unsafe. Then I opened it. The laugh didn't come back. The numbers sat there. Plain and quiet. 90%. Voting shares, active. No footnotes trying to soften it. No conditional language. Just ownership. Spelled out in a way that didn't ask for permission. My name was on every page. Clean. Legal. No gray space. I flipped through it too fast, then slowed down like speed might change what I was reading. Trust structure, private, intentional. Designed not to trigger attention until someone chose to pull the thread. Across the table. He didn't rush me. That was new. Usually people hurry when they think they're about to lose control. That's current. Came evenly. Not pending. Not symbolic. I looked up, then back down again. Like the paper might rearrange itself if I blinked. It didn't. "There's a letter," he added, tapping the last page with one finger. Not pushing, just pointing. I unfolded it. Recognized the handwriting before I read a word. Dad always wrote like he was in a hurry to get somewhere important. Wait, watch, decide. 3 lines. No explanations. No comfort. He never liked repeating himself. My hand started shaking. Not a lot. Enough that I noticed. I hated that part. I pressed my palms flat on the table, like that might hold me together. The coffee between us had gone cold, thin skin on top. Neither of us reached for it. This stayed quiet on purpose. He said, "Your father was clear about that. I worked there for years." I said, the words came out wrong, accusatory, like I was blaming the paper. He didn't defend it. He wanted you to see people clearly before you chose. I wish I could tell you I felt powerful in that moment. I mostly felt sick, like someone had handed me a loaded weapon and asked me to decide what kind of person I was going to be. I closed the folder, slowly. Don't notify anyone yet. A pause, then a nod. Understood. I picked up the folder again, heavier now, and realized something had already shifted. Not around me. Inside. Why rush someone who's busy destroying himself? He didn't wait long to start rearranging things. Names disappeared from internal lists overnight. People I trusted stopped showing up to meetings. By Friday, Half the floor knew someone who'd been walked out without warning. No explanations. Just badges collected and desks cleared like mistakes being erased. In a forwarded message I wasn't supposed to see, his language bled through. We need loyalty, clean house, fresh energy, no numbers, no data, just noise. Another email hit the team an hour later, announcing a promotion that made 3 people laugh out loud and 1 person cry in the stairwell. The wrong person. Everyone knew it. No one said it. I stayed invisible. On purpose. No replies. No LinkedIn updates. No goodbye lunches. I let the silence do its work. Let him enjoy the echo of his own voice bouncing around rooms that used to push back. At the lawyer's office, the printer hummed nonstop. A low mechanical whine that never seemed to finish a job. Page after page fed through, stacked neatly, waiting to become something real. This goes out Monday, he said, sliding the final document toward me. 1 agenda item, no soft language, no padding. Leadership review. I didn't ask who would be invited. I already knew. He watched my hands as I signed. Ink steady. No shaking this time. Once this is filed. He added, careful now, there's no pausing it. I know. A message came through on my phone while the printer started up again. His name, group announcement, something about momentum, about taking the company into the future. I turned the phone face down. This is the part people misunderstand later. They think waiting means hesitation, or fear, or kindness. Waiting felt wrong. Every instinct screamed to interrupt, to stop the damage mid-swing. But interrupting would have handed him the excuse he wanted. So I let him play CEO a little longer. By the time the paperwork finished printing, he'd already convinced himself the room belonged to him. And that belief was about to cost him everything. What happens when someone walks back into a room you erased them from? He was already talking when I opened the door. Hands moving. Voice steady. The kind of confidence that fills space because no one challenges it. He didn't see me at first. None of them did. Then someone at the far end stopped taking notes. My name landed wrong in his mouth. Like a typo. What are you doing here? A few heads turned. Slow. Careful. This meeting is for executives. I know. That was enough to break his rhythm. He stepped away from the table. Closer than necessary. Like proximity could push me back out. You need to leave. I didn't move. Chair legs scraped as someone shifted. The sound cut sharp through the room. I could feel every eye flick between us. Waiting for permission to breathe. This isn't appropriate. He tried again, louder now. The room didn't respond the way it usually did. No nods. No murmurs of agreement. I'm aware. He glanced at the board, searching for backup. It didn't come. A couple of them were already leaning forward. Hands folded. Attention finally where it hadn't been in years. This is not a discussion. He snapped, voice thinning at the edges. I set my folder on the table. Not hard, not dramatic, just enough to make a point. The table didn't belong to him anymore, even if he didn't know it yet. Silence pressed down. Heavy. Someone cleared their throat and immediately regretted it. You're out of line, he said, but it came late. After the shift, I stayed standing. Let the quiet stretch until it started working for me instead of against me. This meeting can continue. I said, or it can change. My heart was trying to beat its way out of my chest. I kept my hand still so no one would see it. He looked around again. This time slower. Calculating. For the first time since I walked in, he realized he wasn't the only one deciding what happened next. What's left to say when paperwork speaks first? The folder hit the table with a dull thud. Not loud, just final. A couple of people leaned in without realizing they were doing it. One of them froze halfway. Eyes narrowing. He'd seen that signature before. Not often. Not recently. That's not... The CEO's son started. Then raised his voice to cover the crack. Too loud. The room flinched. This is ridiculous. You don't get to walk in here and hijack. I opened the folder. One page, then another. Slow enough for everyone to keep up. This trust transferred voting control on activation. I said, keeping my hands flat on the table. Activation is complete. Someone at the far end whispered a name. My father's. It carried farther than intended. He slammed his palm down. You're twisting old paperwork. You think a name gives you authority? Authority didn't answer him. Paper did. 90%, I said. Once. No echo. Voting shares? In my name. A chair scraped back. Another person sat very still. The volume in the room dropped all at once, like someone had turned a knob. That's not possible, he barked, looking to the board for help. Say something. No one rushed in. A few eyes were already on the dates, the seals, the handwriting they remembered from a different era. I closed the folder. This meeting has one item. The word remove didn't need decoration. Effective immediately. I added, and slid the motion forward. My vote satisfies the requirement. He laughed, sharp and brittle. You need consensus. The secretary cleared her throat. The bylaws don't require it. That did it. He stood too fast. Chair legs screaming against the floor. This is a vendetta. I stayed where I was. It's governance. Silence again. Heavy. Earned. The secretary read the motion aloud. No one interrupted. When she finished, there was nothing left to argue with. No one clapped. Thank God. This wasn't satisfying. It was heavy. Like lifting something you didn't realize you'd been carrying for years and finally setting it down where it belonged. Security appeared at the door. Not for me. He looked at me once more, searching for something human to fight. I gave him nothing. Is it still a win if no one celebrates? The door clicked once when he left. A clean latch. Final. No shouting. No last threat. Just a straight walk out in a hallway that swallowed him. His father stayed seated, eyes fixed on the grain of the table like it might offer instructions. He didn't look up. Not at me, not at anyone. The board shifted. Papers straightened. Someone reached for water and missed the glass. So, one of them started. Voice careful. What's next? I didn't answer right away. My throat felt tight. Like I'd been holding something back and my body hadn't caught up yet. I need time, I said. The words landed heavier than I expected. That surprised them. I saw it. They'd braced for a plan, a speech, a list of names. Instead, they got a pause. How much time? Another voice pressed. Gentler, but still pushing. Enough to do this right. A beat, then a nod. Not approval, acceptance. The room emptied in small groups. Quiet conversations that stopped when I looked up. One hand on my shoulder that didn't linger. Another apology that didn't ask for forgiveness. The father was the last to stand. He hesitated. Like he might say something. He didn't. The chair slid back. Shoes receded. The door clicked again. I stayed. The table looked bigger without bodies around it. The folder sat where I'd left it. Open now. Unremarkable. I thought I'd feel relief. I mostly felt tired. Bone deep. The kind that comes after carrying a weight you didn't admit was heavy. I gathered the papers, straightened them, put the folder under my arm. When I turned off the lights, the room didn't argue. I closed the door myself this time. What if fixing things means losing people you like? The changes didn't roll out all at once. They never do. They came as quiet meetings and shorter emails and conversations that ended a little earlier than planned. One person thanked me in the hallway. Didn't stop walking. Just said my name like it mattered again. Another stopped calling entirely. No warning, just gone. I noticed when a meeting ended and their chair stayed empty. A director sat across from me. Hands folded too neatly. You're moving fast. I'm moving deliberately. That's not how everyone sees it. I know. That answer cost me something. I could feel it land between us and stay there. The decision that kept me up came last. I read it 3 times. Then once more. Slower. The name on the page wasn't a villain. Just someone who'd benefited from the wrong system for too long. Someone who'd once covered for me when I was new and scared. Are you sure my counsel asked? Not looking up from his notes. I didn't answer right away. My pen hovered. Ink already bled a little onto my thumb where I'd pressed too hard. Yes, the pen moved. The smudge stayed. The call afterward was brief. Polite. Controlled. They didn't argue. That somehow made it worse. I understand. They said, I just didn't expect it to be you. I didn't expect it either. When the line went dead, the office felt quieter than it had all day. Not empty, just still, like something had settled whether I liked it or not. No one tells you how lonely authority is. They talk about power like it fills a space. Mostly, it clears one. I washed the ink off my thumb and went back to work. What if the real choice is not undoing anything? The final change went through just after midnight. No ceremony, no announcement. Just a confirmation line sliding into my inbox. Clean and final. Governance updated. Authority reassigned. His name removed from the succession path permanently. I stared at the screen longer than I needed to. The keyboard kept clicking in the quiet office. The sound too sharp for the hour. I kept typing anyway. If I stopped, I knew I'd think about it too much. They asked if I wanted the corner office. Bigger desk. Better view. I told them not yet. Maybe not ever. I wasn't ready to sit in a room that felt like a trophy. I cleared out a smaller space instead. One desk, one chair, one photo. My dad and me on a sidewalk I barely remembered, both of us squinting into bad sunlight. I set it where I could see it without trying. I never called him. Not once. Not to explain. Not to soften it. Not to prove anything. Silence felt more honest than any conversation we could have had. A board member stopped by late, leaning against the doorframe. You did what had to be done. I did what I chose. I corrected. They nodded like that mattered. Some nights I wonder if that choice made me colder. Other nights I know it just made me clearer. I shut the laptop and sat there with my hand still on the desk, letting the weight of it settle where it belonged. Not on my shoulders, on the structure I'd locked in place. Here's the thing I learned. The part no one tells you when they talk about power or justice. Walking away isn't strength if you leave the door unlocked. Real change happens when you make a decision you can't quietly reverse and live with it, even when it costs you comfort, approval, or the illusion of being liked. I turned off the light and left the office the way I wanted it left. Closed, quiet, done. By 9 o'clock that morning, I was no longer employed by the company I'd helped hold together for almost a decade. I was already sitting when it happened. The conference chair was too low, my knees higher than the table edge. The air smelled like burnt coffee, the kind that had been reheated more than once. Nobody offered water. Nobody asked how I was doing. The CEO leaned back, hands folded, eyes not on me. They stayed fixed on the man beside him. New suit, new haircut. Still stiff in it. He has an MBA, the CEO said, almost casually. He's on a different level. The man beside him lifted one finger, cutting through my sentence before it finished forming. Not aggressive, polite. Like I'd missed my turn. A folder slid across the table. White paper, clean. No handwritten notes. This had been prepared. They wanted 3 times the output. Same deadlines, less testing, fewer reviews. They called it a modern pace. My mouth opened, closed, opened again. That breaks the system. The man smiled. Not wide. Just enough to show he wasn't worried. The words came down like a stamp. Accept it or leave. Something in me went flat. No spike, no heat, just a quiet click, like a switch flipping. I nodded once, more out of habit than agreement. Okay. The pen in HR's hand stopped moving. I stood up before anyone else could speak. The chair legs scraped loud against the floor. I didn't apologize. I resigned. Effective immediately? No one moved. It was like I'd stepped off the script they'd rehearsed. I reached for my badge on the way out. The reader flashed red. A dull beep followed. That sound hit harder than the words in the room. My name is Maribel Knox. 47 years old. I didn't look back. The hallway felt longer than it ever had. Phones rang somewhere behind closed doors. Someone laughed, then stopped. I walked anyway. Before this story continues, it's important to note that the story you are about to hear is a fictional work created by the writing team at Revenge AITA. While inspired by real workplace dynamics and emotional truths, the characters and events are dramatized for storytelling purposes. The elevator doors closed. My reflection stared back at me. Badge gone, shoulders tight. I pressed the lobby button with more force than necessary. When the doors opened again, the building looked the same. Glass, light. People moving with purpose. I stepped outside. Cold air hitting my face, and kept walking. My desk looks smaller than it should, like it shrank while I was in that room. The air around it smells like dust and warm printer toner. The kind that sticks in your nose. I open the bottom drawer. My bag goes in first. Then the mug with the chipped handle. The stupid stress ball someone tossed me during a team retreat years ago. I squeeze it once. It doesn't help. I drop it into the bag anyway. Keys clack behind me. Someone laughs, then coughs, then goes quiet. A phone comes up to an ear a little too fast. No one says my name. The new manager stands in the hallway, arms crossed, shoulder leaning against the wall like he belongs there now. He watches me pack without blinking. Not smug, not angry, just present, like this is confirmation. A folder hits the edge of my desk as I zip the bag. HR's handwriting on the tab. My name, past tense. I'll mail anything else. Floats down the hallway. Not an offer. A dismissal. I don't answer. I sling the bag over my shoulder and walk. At the badge reader, my hand hesitates. Muscle memory. The light flashes red again. Same dull beep. Someone behind me clears their throat. Impatient. Use the other door. Comes from somewhere over my shoulder. I do. The elevator dings when I press the button. Normal sound. Too loud. I stare at the closing doors until they seal me in. The lobby smells like cleaner and old carpet. Outside, cold air hits my face hard enough to sting. I didn't bring a jacket. I stand there anyway. Bag cutting into my shoulder. Long enough for the automatic doors to almost close again. They don't. No security. No HR. No one calling my name like they forgot something important. I walk to my car. My hands shake when I unlock it. That part surprises me. I sit there with the engine off, forehead resting against the steering wheel. Bills flicker through my head. Rent. Insurance. Things I usually don't let myself think about during work hours. I turn the key. The engine catches. I pull out of the lot and don't slow down. I slide into the corner seat at the coffee shop uptown. Same place. Same cracked table edge. The air smells like cinnamon and burned espresso. Too sweet and too bitter at the same time. I open my email. New message. Subject line already written before I think about it. Resignation. 2 paragraphs. Straight. No thank yous. No explanations. I read it once. Then again, my finger hovers. Click. Sent. That lands heavier than walking out. I pull up my resume. The file date stares back at me like an accusation. Years old. I scroll. Job titles I haven't thought about in forever. I start fixing a line. Then stop. It feels like admitting something I wasn't ready to say out loud. My phone buzzes on the table. The name flashes up. The new manager. I let it buzz until it stops. Another vibration. HR this time. Same result. A few seconds of quiet. Then a text comes through from Evan, one of the back-end engineers. We've worked together since before the company got fancy. Hey, are you still nearby? 3 dots appear. Disappear. Appear again. I don't answer. The coffee goes untouched. My leg won't stop bouncing. On the surface, I probably look fine. Just another person with a laptop and nowhere urgent to be. Inside, everything feels tight. Like I'm holding my breath without meaning to. Another text. Things are acting weird. No emojis. No jokes. That's how I know. I flip my phone face down. The screen still lights up underneath. Faint and insistent. This is the moment people talk about later. Like it was obvious what the right move was. It wasn't. It felt small. Petty. Even. Choosing silence instead of stepping back in. I close my laptop. The snap echoes louder than it should. The buzzing keeps going. I pick up my bag, sling it over my shoulder, and stand. Another vibration. Different name this time. Lena from infrastructure. She never texts unless it matters. Monitoring's weird. Before I can lock the screen. It buzzes again, then again. Short gaps. No small talk. That rhythm tells me more than screenshots ever could. I don't ask for details. I already know the shape of it. Someone reached for a shortcut. Someone skipped the boring step that keeps everything upright. The step I wrote down years ago and made people practice until they rolled their eyes. A call tries to come through. I let it die. My phone lights up with a group message I'm no longer part of, but the preview still shows. Words like latency, failover. Someone types should be fine and deletes it. I picture the server room without trying. The hum that never quite goes quiet. The lights that blink in patterns you stop noticing until one of them changes. When things start stacking wrong, that hum deepens. You feel it in your chest before the alerts fire. The new manager doesn't know the sequence. He knows the diagram. He knows the slide deck version. That's not the same thing. I trained teams on this exact handoff because if you touch the wrong switch first, everything downstream starts lying. Another message from Evan. Hey, he's asking if you documented the rollback. My coffee is cold now. Bitter. I swallow it anyway. The answer sits in my throat. Yes, of course it's documented. Clear. Step by step. I made sure of that because this system doesn't forgive guessing. A new call tries to break through, executive office this time. The number alone carries weight. I stare at it until the ringing stops. I set the phone face down on the table. The buzzing still pushes through the wood. Faint but constant. This is the moment where stepping in would feel familiar. Easy. Muscle memory kicking back on. I stay where I am. I pay for the coffee I didn't finish. Shoulder my bag and walk out while the phone keeps lighting up behind me. The call comes from the executive office. Same number everyone recognizes. I watch it ring until the screen goes dark. A voicemail lands a few seconds later. Professional. Even tone. The kind you could play in a training video. Another call follows. Shorter gap this time. Another voicemail. The words come faster, like she's reading while walking. Still controlled. Still trying. The third one is different. Her breathing slips into the message before the words do. There's a pause where she forgets what she's supposed to say. Please call back. The CEO needs to speak with you. I listen to the whole thing. I don't rush it. Then I delete it. That surprises me. The calm. My hands aren't shaking anymore. They're steady on my lap, like they finally got instructions. I glance at the clock on my phone. 11:30. So it's happening. Not eventually. Not hypothetically. Right now. The phone lights up again before I can lock the screen. Same number. Then a different extension. Then the same one again. The vibration changes tone when calls stack up. I didn't know that until today. A text slips in underneath the calls. No greeting. No name. Are you available? I don't reply. Another voicemail arrives before I can clear the notification. This one drops the script halfway through. We're having issues. She stops. Starts again. They're asking for you specifically. I don't need to hear the rest. I already know what that means. Somewhere. Someone who waved me off this morning is no longer in control of the room. I stand up and step outside so I don't have to hear the phone buzzing through the table anymore. It keeps going in my hand now. Urgent and insistent. I let it. It doesn't feel good. There's no rush, no satisfaction. Just a weight settling in my chest. Like gravity finally noticed me. Another call comes in. I silence it without looking. I start walking. No destination. Just forward. The number isn't saved. But I know it anyway. I stop walking. The phone vibrates once more before I answer. My name comes through the speaker, slow, careful, like he's testing the ground. The founder, the one who hired me when the office still fit on one floor, his voice sounds rough. Not loud, not panicked, just worn down. They're in trouble. No buildup. No apology. Just the truth. Dropped clean. I lean against the wall outside the shop. The concrete is cold through my coat. I don't say anything yet. I know you resigned this morning. He continues. I heard how it happened. Silence stretches. He lets it. We need help. Not an offer. Not a command. A statement shaped like a request. Not as an employee. He adds quickly. Not reporting to them. Just help. I stare at a thin crack in the sidewalk near my shoe. I've stepped over it 100 times. Never noticed it until now. They wanted 3 times the output, I say. My voice sounds steadier than I feel. Same deadlines. Less testing. They called it efficiency. The line goes quiet, long enough that I check the screen to make sure the call didn't drop. That's not how those systems work, he finally says. They told me to trust the new manager's framework. I continue. Said credentials mattered more than experience. They didn't want my judgment. Just my hands. He exhales slowly. The sound drags through the speaker. I warned the board. He says, about replacing people who understand the bones of the place. I warned them about this exact thing. I don't respond. There's nothing to add. I'm not calling to defend what happened. He says, I'm calling because clients are calling me. And because the people still inside don't know where to touch it without making it worse. I close my eyes for a second. The noise from the street fades. I can stabilize it, I say. But not the way it was before. I wouldn't expect that. He replies. We sit in that space for a beat. Not negotiating yet, just acknowledging where we are now. Send me what you need, he says. Your terms? I nod once, even though he can't see it. Give me a little time. I say, I'll wait, he answers. I don't sit down to think it through. I call him back while it's still raw. He answers on the first ring. I can help. I say, but it won't look like before. A pause. Not resistance. Attention, consultant. I continue. I keep my voice even. Independent. No internal title. He doesn't interrupt. I bill hourly. I name the rate. There's a small inhale on the other end of the line. Just one. Enough to tell me it landed. I report directly to the board. I add, not the executive team, not the manager you just hired. Another pause. Longer this time. And he stays out of my work, completely. No approvals, no check-ins, no opinions. The silence stretches. I hear paper shift. Maybe he's writing. Maybe he's just buying time. I won't undo their decisions for them. I say, I'll stabilize the system. I'll document what they don't understand. I'll hand it back when it's safe. That's it. He clears his throat. You're not asking for much, he says carefully. I am. I reply. I'm just not pretending otherwise. That earns a breath that sounds almost like a laugh. Not amused. Relieved. Send it in writing, he says. I'll make sure it's signed. No pushback. No counter. No attempt to soften it. I end the call and sit there for a moment with the phone in my hand. My heart is loud now. Fast. The kind of pounding that comes after you jump. Not before. I expected negotiation. I expected him to tell me to be reasonable. I expected at least one line about loyalty. None of that comes. I open a new document and start typing. Plain language. Short sentences. No room for interpretation. When I finish, I read it once. I don't polish it. I send it. I walk in the next morning through the same doors, but nothing about it feels familiar. The badge clipped to my jacket is a different color. Consultant printed across it in block letters. No department, no title underneath. The receptionist looks up, freezes for half a beat, then forces a smile that doesn't reach her eyes. They're waiting, she says, already standing. She doesn't ask where I've been. The floor hums louder than usual. Not machines. People. Voices cut off mid-sentence when I pass. The air feels tight, like everyone's been holding it too long. The CEO is outside the conference room. Phone pressed to his ear. He sees me and turns his body slightly away. Like eye contact might trigger something he can't afford right now. Inside. The manager sits at the table with both hands flat in front of him. No laptop. No notes. His shoulders sag in a way I've never seen before. When our eyes meet, he looks down first. Status. Comes from the end of the table. The founder's voice on speaker. Steady and calm. I drop my bag on the chair and open my laptop. Failover triggered correctly. I say, then someone forced a manual override out of sequence. The manager flinches. Not defensive. Exposed. That split the cluster. I continue. Transactions didn't stop. They duplicated. A sharp inhale from someone behind me. Finance? Maybe. We fix it in phases. I add, no shortcuts. Anyone who touches this without checking with me makes it worse. No one argues. No one even nods. They just listen. An engineer I haven't met slides closer. Voice low. We tried restarting, don't. I cut in. Already typing. That'll corrupt what's left. He pulls his hands back from the keyboard like it burned him. Hours pass without anyone asking if I need coffee. I don't. My focus locks in. Screens fill with logs. Patterns I recognize reappear, ugly but manageable. Whispers ripple around the room. I don't turn. By the afternoon, alerts fade from red to amber, then to green. The room exhales in pieces. I close my laptop and stand. We're stable. I say, not safe yet? Stable. No applause. No thanks. That's fine. The manager's gone a few weeks later. No email, no meeting. His calendar just empties out. Someone removes his name from the org chart before lunch. The CEO stops me in the hallway that afternoon. He doesn't block my path. He just stands there, hands loose at his sides. We appreciate what you did. He says, the words come out measured, like he practiced them. We're grateful. I nod once and keep walking. Gratitude shows up earlier than this. If it's real, a recruiter emails me that night. Short message. Direct. She's heard I'm available. Another email follows before I finish reading the first, then a third, from someone I interviewed with years ago and turned down because I thought I was settled. I take the call the next morning. Then another. No small talk. They already know what happened. An offer lands by the end of the week. Better title. Clear authority. More pay than I've ever asked for without flinching. I read it twice to make sure I'm not missing a catch. I can start in 3 weeks. I say into the phone, that works. Comes back immediately. I say yes before my doubt can catch up. On my last day as a consultant, I go back to my old floor to collect the few things I left behind. The office is quieter now, not calmer, just cautious. My desk is exactly how I left it. Drawer still sticks. Chair still leans a little to the left. The stress ball sits in the corner. Bright, unused. I pick it up, turn it once in my hand, then set it back down where it was. The badge comes off at the door this time without a beep. I walk out carrying nothing. I'm at my new desk now. Different building, different rhythm. The chair doesn't wobble. The air smells cleaner, like someone actually changes the filters. Or maybe that's just what relief smells like. The first week, people keep asking what I think before they touch anything important. Not in a performative way. They wait. That's new. I notice it every time. Sometimes, though, my head drifts back to that room, the conference table, the way the sentence landed like a verdict. He's on a different level. It plays on repeat when things get quiet. Maybe he was, I'll give him that, just not the level that holds systems together when nobody's watching. Not the level that catches mistakes before they become disasters. Not the level that knows when not to move fast. I didn't win anything. There was no victory lap. No apology that fixed what broke that morning. I didn't outsmart anyone. I didn't expose a villain. I just stopped shrinking to make other people comfortable. That part still feels strange in my body. Like standing up after sitting too long. Necessary. A little painful. A few days ago, someone here joked about bringing in an outside consultant to shake things up. The room laughed. I didn't. I waited. The conversation shifted on its own. I still think about whether I'd do it again. Walk out like that. Let the silence stretch. Let things wobble before they steadied. Some days, the answer is easy. Other days, it sits heavier. Before I shut down for the night, I jot a note on a sticky pad and leave it on the corner of my desk. Not for anyone else, just for me. Titles and credentials can open doors, Joe, but they don't keep anything running. The people who quietly carry the weight are only invisible until the weight drops. Know which one you are and don't wait for permission to protect your ground. The moment my manager called me redundant, the room went quiet in that fake, polite way offices do right before something ugly happens. I didn't know it was a firing meeting when I walked in. No warning, no calendar hint, just a glass conference room, blinds half open, and that tight smile people wear when they've already decided your future. My name is Hannah, 41 years old. The word landed like it had been practiced. We're overstaffed. And honestly, you're the problem. Not loud, not angry. Worse than that, casual. like she was talking about a printer jam. Then she added it, almost like an aside. Crazy. Just dropped it there and kept going. Eyes flicking to the folder in front of her instead of my face. HR slid the papers across the table without meeting my eyes. The stack was thin. That hurt more than it should have. I remember thinking I should say something smart, something strong. What came out instead was stupid. So, that's it. Nobody corrected me. My badge chirped when I shifted in my chair. Red, not green. That little sound told me more than anyone in that room did. Access gone. Just like that. Mid-sentence, mid-career, outside the glass. Interns pretended not to watch. One didn't bother pretending. He looked straight at me, then looked away fast, like he'd been caught staring at a wreck. I stood there too long. Long enough to feel the power drain out of the room. Long enough to realize nobody was going to stop this. Long enough to hear my manager say something about staying professional, which almost made me laugh. I swear, if you've ever been fired and told to stay professional, you know how fake that word feels in your mouth. I walked out carrying nothing but my phone, hands shaking, breath coming too fast. The elevator ride down felt longer than it should have. Before I even stepped outside, I checked one thing. Just muscle memory, the state portal, the operating license registry I'd managed for years. My name was still there. No backup, no secondary contact, just me, alone. The story you're about to hear is a fictional work created by the writing team at Revenge AITA. While inspired by real workplace dynamics, characters and events have been dramatized for storytelling purposes. Each story carries its own message and does not repeat across episodes. I stood on the sidewalk staring at my screen, the city moving around me like nothing had changed, and realized they'd taken my job without touching the one thing that actually kept their doors open. The door barely closed behind me before I opened my laptop. No shoes off, no coat down, just straight to the table like if I moved fast enough, this part might rewind. The login screen loaded. I typed without thinking. Muscle memory. Enter. Red banner. Access denied. I tried again. Slower. Like politeness might help. Same thing. Then the second system. Then the third. Each one died the same way. Clean. Immediate. Final. My phone buzzed on the table. A text from IT. I thought HR told you. That was it. No greeting. No explanation. Just that. Like I'd missed a memo instead of my own execution. I wrote back 3 different versions and erased all of them. Finally sent 2 words. They didn't. A minute passed. Then another message slid in. This time from HR corporate tone. Rounded edges. Your access is under temporary review during restructuring. Temporary. That word again. The kind people use when they want you calm while they finish locking the door. That's when it clicked. Not slowly. All at once. They hadn't reacted to me. They'd prepared for me. The badge, the systems, the permissions, none of that happened after the meeting. It happened before I sat down. I hovered over my email app and did something embarrassing. I started typing to my manager. Not angry. Worse. Careful. Explaining myself. Asking if we could talk. I stopped halfway through the sentence and stared at it. Then I deleted the whole thing. My hands were shaking. The laptop fan whined like it was tired of trying too. I almost apologized. For getting fired. Yeah, that's how trained I was. Another login failed. Then another. Each one quieter than the last. No alarms. No drama. Just doors not opening. They thought systems were power. Passwords. Permissions. The visible stuff. I closed everything and opened the one portal that didn't belong to them. The state licensing site. The one I'd memorized because mistakes there cost real money. Real consequences. My credentials worked. The page loaded. Slow. Heavy. Official. There it was. Officer of record. My name. No secondary contact. No backup. No replacement waiting in the wings. Just me. I sat there longer than I needed to, letting that settle. Not smiling. Not relieved. Just clear. For the first time all day, something hadn't been taken from me. The screenshots came in one after another, like someone ripping bandages off a wound I didn't know was still bleeding. I wasn't supposed to see them. That much was obvious. The channel name at the top wasn't one I'd ever been invited to. Still, there it was. My role. Past tense. Please welcome Madison as interim operations lead. Clapping emojis. Fire emojis. Someone typed fresh energy. I stared at the name longer than I should have. Younger. Friendly. The kind of smile people trust without checking credentials. I knew her. Not well. Enough to know she didn't have a license. Enough to know she'd never sat across from a regulator with a clock running. Another screenshot followed. A transcript from a call I hadn't been on. She'll learn fast. No hesitation. No pause. Like learning was a substitute for authorization. Then a joke slid through the thread. Something about me being difficult. Someone added a laughing reaction. Nobody corrected it. Nobody pushed back. That part hurt more than the announcement. The quiet agreement. I went back to the office the next morning to collect the rest of my things. Security let me through after checking a list. Didn't meet my eyes. The break room smelled like burnt coffee. Sharp and sour. The way it always did when the pot sat too long. It felt wrong that it still smelled the same. My desk looked smaller, cleaner, already lighter. Someone had unplugged my monitor and stacked the cables neatly. Like they were being respectful. I almost laughed at that. Voices floated from a conference room down the hall. My manager's tone carried easily. We need someone adaptable. She's enthusiastic. This isn't that complicated. I didn't step closer. I didn't need to. I knew how this went. Complicated always sounded like drama right before a mess. As I turned to leave, a hand brushed my sleeve. Jewels, compliance. Eyes darting, voice low. They're trying to change the license contact. That was all. No explanation. No advice. Just the warning. She stepped back like she'd already said too much. I nodded once and kept walking. The truth settling in with every step. They weren't just replacing me. They were rewriting the story fast enough to pretend I'd never mattered. I hadn't opened my contract in years. Not since the day I signed it and shoved it into a folder I hoped I'd never need again. That night, I pulled it up and scrolled like I was looking for a mistake I'd made a long time ago. Page after page of language nobody reads once they're inside a building. Titles, definitions, responsibilities written by people who never had to carry them. I almost closed it twice. Then I saw the section header and stopped. There it was. The clause I barely remembered drafting. Back when the company first crossed into regulated work and nobody else wanted to deal with it. Withdrawal rights, clean, specific, triggered by involuntary termination. Not dramatic, not angry, just procedural. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel smart. Mostly I felt tired. The kind of tired that comes from realizing you were careful in a room full of people who weren't. I called a notary the next morning. Said I needed a signature verified. No explanation. She didn't ask for one. The office was quiet in that waiting room way that makes you hear your own breathing too clearly. When the stamp came down, it hit harder than it needed to. A flat, heavy thud. Final. I flinched anyway. Termination date, she asked. Pen hovering. I gave it to her. The words tasted wrong in my mouth. She nodded. Stamped again. Slid the paper back like she'd done this 1,000 times. Maybe she had. Maybe this was just another Tuesday for her. I wasn't reacting anymore. That part was over. Whatever came next, I would choose it. Slowly, on purpose. Back home, my phone buzzed while I scanned the document into a folder I labeled. Nothing emotional. Just dates and initials. Clean. An email sat at the top of my inbox. Short, official. No greeting. License verification pending? Please confirm. No urgency marker, no panic yet. Just a quiet request sent into the wrong place. I didn't reply. I closed the laptop and let the silence stretch. Knowing preparation didn't need an audience. Decisions like this worked better when nobody saw them coming. The first message came from a vendor I barely knew. Short, stiff. The kind of email people send when they don't want to accuse you of anything yet. Shipment on hold pending license verification. I read it twice. Didn't forward it. Didn't reply. Just watched it sit there like a warning light nobody wanted to look at. 10 minutes later, another alert hit the system. Different vendor, same issue. Mismatch in authorization records. Incomplete validation. Language that only shows up when something has already gone wrong. Slack started to stutter. One notification, then another, then three at once. The sound stacked on itself. Sharp and irritating, like something trying to get attention. Someone dropped a message into a public channel. Does anyone know who's listed as officer of record right now? No answer. A minute passed, then another voice chimed in, trying to sound calm. It's being updated. That was a lie, or hope. Hard to tell which. My replacement was pulled into a call. I wasn't on it, but pieces leaked out fast enough. Screenshots, half-sent messages. She couldn't answer the verification questions. Not the basic ones, not the ones I used to handle without notes. Legal stepped in. That always changed the tone. Who approved the change in licensing contact? Nothing followed. Just typing bubbles that appeared and vanished. People backing out of sentences before committing to them. That's when I noticed the shift. My name wasn't coming up anymore. Not even as blame. It had been replaced with something vaguer, safer. The situation, the issue, the complication. This is when people stop saying your name and start saying the situation. It's cleaner that way, less personal. Another message popped up. Direct this time. From legal. No greeting. No small talk. Can you talk? I stared at the screen. The Slack sound still echoing in my head. The panic hadn't exploded yet, but it was there now. Quiet. Spreading. The kind that comes when shortcuts stop working and nobody wants to admit they never had a real plan. They looped me into the call without asking. No greeting. No apology. Just my name dropped into the thread like a tool they'd forgotten they still owned. Legal talked first. Tight voice. Controlled. We're seeing verification failures across multiple vendors. IT came in right after. Hesitant. You could hear it even through the silence between words. The license reassignment didn't finalize. The portal's rejecting the change. Then my manager, confident in the way people get when they don't want to hear the answer. So override it. We just need coverage until this settles. Nobody agreed out loud. Nobody refused either. IT tried again. There's no temporary override for officer of record. That field is locked. A pause. Longer this time. Do it anyway. That was the moment. Not loud, not dramatic. Just a line crossed like it had been crossed before, probably more than once. Fingers moved. Commands entered. Someone typed faster than they should have. I heard the click of a keyboard. Sharp, final, and then nothing. The call went quiet. Not dropped, just empty. The kind of silence that means everyone is watching the same screen and not liking what they see. IT broke it first. It logged. Legal didn't ask what that meant. They already knew. Logged were state level. Nobody spoke after that. The manager exhaled hard, like annoyance. Like this was still a technical inconvenience and not something with teeth. I wish I could say I felt satisfied. I didn't. I felt sick. This wasn't clever anymore. It wasn't contained. Panic had pushed them into a space they didn't understand. And the system didn't care about intentions. I disconnected without saying goodbye. Sat there longer than necessary. Let my hands rest flat on the table so they'd stop shaking. The email came in less than 10 minutes later. Official header. Clean formatting. No emotion. License integrity review initiated. State compliance flagged the account pending investigation. I read it once, then again. No fireworks. No victory. Just confirmation. They hadn't fixed the problem. They'd proven it existed. I wasn't in the room, but I didn't need to be. The shift traveled fast. Faster than rumors usually do. Someone forwarded me the internal briefing agenda by mistake. No message. Just the attachment. 10 minutes later, another ping. He's back. The CEO had just returned from vacation. Photos were still floating around from his last post. Sunburned, smiling. Confident enough to leave a company alone for a week and assume it would still be standing when he got back. That confidence lasted about as long as it took the dashboards to load. Legal went first. Slow. Careful. Every word measured like it might end up in court. We're experiencing operational interruptions tied to licensing verification. Operations tried to soften it. Several vendors paused shipments pending confirmation. IT didn't soften anything. The officer of record field is invalid. There's no authorized replacement. The room went quiet in that way meetings do when the slide deck stops helping. Someone finally said my name. Not as blame, as fact. The CEO leaned forward. His voice didn't rise at first. You're telling me the company can't operate? Legal nodded. Once? Not without a licensed officer. Another pause. Shorter, sharper. Then the sound cut through everything. Holy hell, who did we just fire? It wasn't polished. It wasn't strategic. It was raw panic dressed up as anger. Chairs shifted. Nobody answered. My manager stared at the table like it might offer shelter. No one defended the decision. No one repeated the words redundant or difficult or crazy. Those labels evaporated the second they stopped being useful. That was the moment the story flipped. Publicly, irreversibly. If you've ever waited for the truth to finally land, this is what it feels like. Not satisfying. Just heavy. Like gravity reasserting itself. My phone rang before the meeting even ended. Unknown number. Corporate prefix. I let it ring twice before picking it up. Hannah. The voice said, "Careful now. We need to talk." I answered on the third ring. Not because I was ready, because letting it go to voicemail felt like pretending I didn't know what they wanted. Hannah, the voice came through steady, practiced. We need your help. Not an apology. Not even a pause to clear the air. Straight to need. I waited. Let the silence stretch until it started to feel uncomfortable on their end instead of mine. My breathing sounded too loud in my own ears, like I was the only one still alive on the line. We're facing a compliance interruption. The CEO continued. If you could temporarily assist, we could stabilize operations while we stop. I cut in. The word came out calmer than I expected. If this is temporary, you don't need me. A beat. Paper shifting. Someone else breathing into the call. We're prepared to discuss options. Legal slid in? Careful. A consulting arrangement. Short term. I leaned back and closed my eyes. The old version of me would have rushed to fill the space, would have explained, would have softened the edges for them. That version stayed quiet. My conditions aren't complicated. I said, slow, clear, written acknowledgement of wrongful termination. Full restoration of my authority. Immediate removal of the person who authorized the override. And compensation for the damage this caused to my professional record. No one interrupted. No one rushed to agree. That's a lot, the CEO said finally. It's the cost, I replied, of firing the license. Another pause. Longer this time? I could feel them recalculating. Not the risk. The price. They always hesitate there. We'll need to review. Legal offered. I almost laughed. Not out loud. Just a breath that came out sharp through my nose. This is where old me would have folded. I said, more to myself than them. I'm not negotiating against myself anymore. The line stayed quiet. Then the CEO again. Softer now. We'll get back to you. I ended the call without saying goodbye and set the phone face down on the table. My hands were steady this time. The silence that followed felt earned. They missed the deadline by 19 minutes. I knew because I was watching the clock instead of my inbox. The message they promised never came. No counteroffer. No acceptance. Just silence stretched thin enough to snap. I opened the portal and logged in the way I always had. Same credentials. Same screen. My hand hovered longer than it needed to. Not dramatic. Just human. It shook anyway when I clicked submit. Withdrawal confirmed. The page refreshed once. Then again. A warning banner appeared. Plain and unforgiving. License status pending review. Operations authorization suspended. My phone started lighting up before I could close the laptop. IT first. One line. Everything just froze. Legal followed. Faster than I expected. Did you submit the withdrawal I didn't answer? An internal alert popped up next. System-wide. Distribution halted. Vendor access revoked. No workarounds listed. No exceptions. Another call came in. I let it ring out, then another, then a text from Jules. They put her on leave, no name needed. I knew who she meant. The manager. The one who'd said crazy like it was a diagnosis instead of an insult. The company moved quickly when consequences showed up in red. I sat there with my hands flat on the table, breathing through the aftershock. I didn't feel powerful. I didn't feel vindicated. Mostly I felt empty in a way that was oddly clean. I didn't feel brave. I felt done. An email slipped into my inbox. Quiet compared to the rest, different tone, different weight. A recruiter I'd spoken to once. Months ago, back when leaving felt impossible. Still in Chicago, the message read, "We have an opening that requires your exact background." I closed the portal and stared at the screen for a moment before responding. Not rushing, not apologizing, just typing yes and sending it into the space I'd finally made for myself. The fallout didn't come with fireworks. It came in fragments. A forwarded email from a client I recognized immediately. Contract paused pending compliance review. Another one after that. Then a third. Different tone. Same outcome. People don't argue with regulators. They leave quietly and pretend it was always part of the plan. The official notice landed 2 days later. Compliance review opened. Scope broad. Timeline undefined. The kind of language that keeps executives up at night. Someone texted me a single sentence. She's gone. No celebration followed it. No relief either. Just confirmation. The manager who'd called me crazy, who'd signed off on shortcuts she didn't understand, was terminated that morning. Box carried out. Access cut the way mine had been. Fast, clean. I didn't respond. My first day at the new company was almost boring. No speeches, no announcements. Just a badge handed over without ceremony and a desk that wasn't already cleared for me when the monitor powered on. It made a low hum that filled the quiet space. Steady. Reliable. I let it sit like that for a second before logging in. The CEO stopped by later. Didn't sit. Didn't perform. "We don't need heroes," he said. "We need someone who knows when not to cut corners." I nodded. That was enough. I still think about going back sometimes. Not because I miss them. Because the old version of me learned how to survive by staying. That instinct doesn't disappear overnight. That scares me more than anything. Before I shut down for the day, I wrote something on a small scrap of paper and taped it under my screen. Not for motivation, not for revenge. Just a reminder I could see when I needed it. I wasn't redundant. I was the license. The lesson I'm carrying forward is simple and uncomfortable. If your value only exists in other people's approval, they will erase it the moment it becomes inconvenient. Real power isn't loud. It's written into systems, into boundaries, into the quiet choice to walk away when staying costs you yourself.